Okay, guys, going live on YouTube. We're going to give people another 1 or 2 minutes to settle in. And
I guess
yeah,
I have
you
limited
can
signal. I mean,
strut up and down
here
the
we go.
stage to your heart's content.
Okay.
Doug as well, feel free to move around a little bit. Always
Okay,
nice, a little
thank
bit
you.
of movement as you like, just forward, backward, left, right. It's nice looking.
Yeah.
Shows people that there's a person behind the avatar. Who have
Yeah.
we got here? We've got Jim C,
Perfect.
um, Bogdan, who else? Stefan, uh, Alina. Is that Alina from Were You in Engage? Is that the Alina in from Engage
Yes.
yesterday? I think.
Confused
Hi there.
social
We see you all
anxiety
Oh.
there.
happening again.
Nice.
Oh, hi.
I have a virtual social anxiety.
Keely and Noah. We got a great
It
crowd here. This
demonstrates
is
the
really great.
power of the tool.
Who else we got? We got
Yes.
Rira. Okay, Rira, can I ask you a favor up there? You're kind of standing right in front of the camera boy. That's going out live. Yeah. So anywhere not on that stage would be really helpful. Thank you.
Better.
All right. Hi, Donna. Thanks for coming in. Okay, it's 2 past. I think we're pretty much going to start. Lovely. So, actually, wait. Relax, everybody. Give me 1 more minute. I'll be right with you. Okay. Almost there.
Hi, Luis. How are you? On the menu, you have an emoji option there.
Okay. Uh, okay, everyone ready? Give me some emojis. If you're ready with popcorn and notepads, you're going to learn quite a lot today. I've watched these slides once or twice, and there's a lot of information in here. Um, Personally, I think it's fascinating because of the implications, which Doug will talk you through in a minute. And actually, Doug and I had a conversation about this, which is why I asked him to join us and share that with the community. What he has learned in his time is fascinating to me. I thought we'd share it with you. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Doug Hohulin. Is the solutions architect for Nokia. Everybody knows Nokia, and their play in this industry could not be overstated. And to hear directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak, is incredibly valuable for us. We'll be discussing the lessons learned from a history of 1 billion cell and smartphones and what 1 billion 5G users will look like in the future. So 1 billion 5G users, that sounds like quite a tall order, but Doug's going to talk us through that. 5G is a foundation technology to support mobile, VR, and AR solutions for consumers and enterprise, bringing powerful network access around the world and support for VR, AR where Wi-Fi is not available. In 1989, there were 7 million cell phones in the world. 25 years later, there were 7 billion. And lessons learned from this transition by Doug, who was kind of at the helm of all that, may apply to the VR AR industry. So that's essentially what we're going to hear about today. Doug, we've had a number of conversations. It's a great pleasure to host you here in AltSpace, where we bring leaders from the field and the industry and let them share their knowledge and wisdom insights with our members. So, Doug, thank you so much for joining, and over to you, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you for everyone for attending. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning for where you're at. If you can go to the next slide. Um, so
Absolutely.
I'm real excited about where we're at in this history that we're in. I'm actually a futurist, a technologist. I've been working with Nokia and Motorola for over 30 years, building out cellular telephone networks and various elements of those networks and the foundational technologies. And so I was going to share what we're doing in the cellular world and how those lessons learned can help with in the VR world, because as already mentioned, it's a foundation technology. So we're in the century of the billions and billions, and it's just an exciting time to be alive and looking at how this transition will, even in the next few years, where we'll get to 1 billion VR users. So if you go to the next slide, please. So even though I'm a futurist and a technologist, my dad was a historian. and I really like history. And a few months ago, I was looking, and I came across an interesting statistic. And in 1802, there were 1 billion humans on the planet. That's when we reached, as humanity reached a billion humans on the world. And now we're up at 7.8 billion. But that got me thinking, especially the 1802 number, because if you go to the next slide, you'll see that we actually reached 200 years later a billion cell phone users. So there are a billion people using cell phones in the world, and as I mentioned before, for slow growth, and then all of a sudden there was this explosion of cell phone users. And in fact, in 2014, we reached more cell phones than humans in the world, and it just continues to grow and grow. So that's the cell phone industry. And so that got me thinking about this century of billions and billions. So if you go to the next slide, what you'll see here is, I started thinking, okay, where were other billions happening? So, in 2005, we had a billion internet users. In 2007, a billion internet devices. Then PCs came along in 2008, a billion vehicles in 2010. And then in 2011, a billion smartphone users. So all of a sudden, there's this explosion of billions happening. And so where can we see this in the future? What's going to happen? And so I'm going to be talking about a billion 5G devices, because, again, that's foundational technologies for VR technology. And then, when does that mean we'll get a billion VR users? And then the billions continue in terms of smart robots, exoskeletons, AVs, 3D printers, and so forth, and even a billion robots and even humans in the space. So I just seeing that this is the century of the billions and billions. I like a quote from Carl Sagan. He said, "I never said billions and billions, for one thing is too imprecise." But we'll try to be a little bit precise in this presentation and see what the future will bring. So go to the next slide, please. And you'll see, some people say, well, what's 5G technology? Well, it's generation technology, and it seems every generation is about every decade. When I started in this industry, within the analog industry, where you had these brick phones, 30-minute battery life, it was very expensive, $3,000 for a device, and that kind of reminds me of the VR world, today. Or a couple of years ago especially. And we got to about 7 million subs with 1G technology. Then came along 2G, then 3G, and each G you get about 10 times better performance. And now we're going into the 5G world, where you're going to have smarter devices, smaller devices with lower power, faster gigabit speeds, 1 millisecond latency, lighter devices, denser, cheaper, and all these foundational technologies will allow for VR, the foundation to help for VR to take off. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see the, what is estimated in subscribers. So these slides are available, and if you go to the slides, you can click on the links and see all the reports from this. But the WhiteHouse.gov is really, and countries around the world are focusing on how do we build out 5G and this race to 5G technology. And so this WhiteHouse.gov report shows that it's estimated about 2023 we'll have about 1.4 billion 5G subscribers in the world. And here in the United States, the wireless industry is investing about $275 billion to build out this 5G technology and creating 3 million new jobs to do this build out. So it's really an exciting time as we're building out this technology. And once this technology is built out in the next few years, it has already started in 2018, actually, is when the first 5G network was launched. And, then this gets built out, and then all these great applications can be enabled because of this 5G technology. So if you go to the next slide, this slide came from Qualcomm, and it highlights, the different sectors of the economy that will get benefits from 5G. So there's about 14 different industries that this report looked at from Qualcomm. And actually, they did this study in 2017, and they estimated in 2035 that you'll see about $12.3 trillion of economic value enabled because of 5G technology. And then just 2 years later, they actually added another 900 billion dollars to the world economy because of 5G. And we're in the world where $1 trillion means a little bit less, but it's still $13.2 trillion dollars. Is pretty impressive in my opinion. And so you can see where this 5G will contribute. And actually, if you look through this list, a lot of these 5G industries, I think can also ride. These industries can also benefit from AR and VR as well. So it's really exciting how 5G gets deployed, and then AR and VR will continue along with that. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that there's kind of, as you're building out a network, building out this ecosystem, there's these emerging technologies. And so you have a network, and that's the area I work in. And I've helped to deploy networks in Japan, Venezuela, Spain, in the United States, and other countries. And we build out 1G, then 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G is being built out. And so that's a network that needs to be built out to enable these technologies. Of course, then you have devices, and without the device, the network is meaningless. So you have all these devices being deployed. And we're having industrial robotics happening. We got autonomous vehicles going on. But the area I'm very excited about is the AR and VR devices. And then you have the enabling applications. What applications go on the network? What devices enable these applications to make people's lives more meaningful? So these are the emerging technologies, and this report is the future of the network-enabled marketplace. ATIS is a standards-based organization, and here in the United States, but then there's standards organizations around the world trying to build out this technology. And actually, 5G is just a start. We're expecting that towards the end of this decade, we'll actually even be at 6G technology. So some really exciting times. So if you go to the next slide, it kind of highlights the challenge that, why 5G? Why deploy this technology? Well, today the average person in the United States uses about 40 gigabytes per month per sub. And as we enable more 4K video, as we enable VR and AR, that will grow by a factor of anywhere from 20 to 100 times more. Over 100 times more capacity is needed per gigabytes per sub per month. And so we got to build out this network to make this work. Now, not only do you need better, faster speeds and capacity, gigabytes and gigabits per second, but also the application and the latency is really important. So like AR, VR, we need to be under 5 milliseconds, at least under 10 milliseconds, and have a very good experience. You really want to get even closer to 5 milliseconds. Well, in one sense, one of the challenges with AR, VR to get underneath this 10 millisecond latency is the speed of light. Think of that for every 1 millisecond, you get the speed of light. If you do round trip delay and also going through fiber, you're in this bubble about 100 kilometers per millisecond. So that means you are in this bubble of anywhere from 500 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers, or 300 miles to 600 miles. And so that is the network that has to be designed to minimize this latency underneath 10 milliseconds. So if you go to the next slide, what you'll see here is this technology, and this slide only shows the air interface. The technology from the head-mounted display to the cell site, and then there's other back delays, the fiber optic delay systems and so forth. But so there's this delay budget, and the idea is to get down to under 10 milliseconds and even under 5 milliseconds. So in this case, HSPA is the 3G technology, LTE is the 4G technology, and then 5G, we're getting down to 1 millisecond latencies. And so that is what we're needing to achieve in order to reach this, AR, VR. And so that's why I'm saying that 5G is a foundational technology. Okay, next slide, please. So here, this slide this information came from GSMAintelligence.com. as part of a group that Nokia is a part of. And they talked about the trends in 2020. And I thought this was an interesting two charts that's worth highlighting. One shows you here in the United States how many smartphones are out there, which is 91% here in the United States. People have smartphones, then tablets and smart TVs. Um, and then you have VR headsets, and right now it's at 9%. And one of the challenges is, as I think in 2017, people were really excited about AR, VR. You're seeing different devices coming out, these cardboard devices and so forth. But people started saying, well, I tried it out for a while, but battery life was, a couple hours. I saw the promise, but, when is it really going to take off? When is this technology going to happen? And so the thesis of my talk here is that it's going to take off in the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And then from there, there's going to be this explosion of AR, VR technology. So if you go to the next slide, these are what is predicted in 2025. And you'll see that, that there's the enterprise space, and I work in an enterprise group actually at Nokia. And we're looking at, how do we help bring about AR, VR to the healthcare industry, to engineering, to real estate, to the military, and then there's education, and then there's the consumer space. And right now, consumers, the focus is around gaming and live entertainment, and so this is where it's going to continue to grow and grow. So this just kind of gives you a feel for what are the market segments and what are the opportunities on the applications. In fact, in the United States, the U.S. DoD is actually having is putting out an RFP for 5G, and part of the 5G is around AR, VR. How do you do training in AR and VR? How do you be more efficient, in the DoD? So if you go to the next slide, what we're doing here at Nokia, not only are we using, helping to build out the network in 5G, actually we're using AR, VR ourselves to help deploy 5G. So around the world, it's estimated that there will be over a million cell sites, both small cells as well as macro cell sites, needed for 5G. Here in the United States, there's 300 macro cell sites, 300,000 macro cell sites, and then there's small cells. And so, we're needing to build out lots of cell sites and upgrading them to 5G. And so what we're doing is we're using AR, VR to help with the inspection of the build process. So we visualize the cell sites, the towers, and this enables remote engineers to ensure the quality of the system. We provide the remote expertise and configuration. So what we're finding by doing this is, and I think other industries are finding this as well, that their average run rate, the ability, they improve this by 30 to 50%. Efficiency. We increase our efficiency and we increase our build time by 50% using some of the AR, VR techniques. So we're actually at Nokia using this technology to help with with 5G build out. And then as the 5G build out happens, then they can leverage that to actually use more of the network. So it's kind of like this endless upward spiral effect where you build out more 5G using AR, VR, which gives you more ability to use AR, VR. So I found that to be an exciting time. So if you go to the next slide, the opportunity, for the enterprise. But what you're going to see is, one thing I'm really excited about educators in VR is talking about, they're learning, education is a $586 billion industry. Then you have the entertainment industry, a $2 trillion industry. And then you have e-commerce, and all those, as you go into the AR, VR world, where there are all revenue opportunities to be accelerated because of AR, VR. Just like 5G, that slide I showed you before, the same acceleration can be done with AR, VR as well. So next slide, you'll see Phil Rosendale, who did Second Life, but he is also working on, with high fidelity. He gave a presentation. He predicts 1 billion people in VR by 2027. I think that's a great date. My estimation is that's plus or minus 2 years. And again, the foundational 5G technology, some of what the head-mounted displays are doing, I think will get there. The interesting thing is that a billion people will generate about $1 trillion of economic development because of that. So, here the world, we're really struggling with the COVID crisis. And so what we need to do is help enable the economy. And so this $1 trillion of economic values because of that. So you have 100 million people, is estimated, according to Phil Rosendale, working in VR online at once, learning to work, learn, play, and travel, which this is an exciting time. So if you go to the next slide, while that's exciting, that's a prediction of the future. We still have our struggles. Can we achieve this 2027 date? What will drive the masses? In that, when I was working with Motorola, we launched a smartphone, the Motorola Q, in 2005. And it was an interesting technology, but it didn't really hit the masses until the iPhone came along, and then all of a sudden people started using smartphones. So, right now we're in the second generation of head-mounted displays. Some really interesting things happening, but, from Phil Rosendale and others, that work, to really achieve to the masses, this 1 billion people, you need technology like see-through cameras, facial capturing, finger tracking, battery life. Actually, for me, that would be the number one. When can the battery life? Also, not on this bullet point, but just the ease of putting them on. You just put them on, and within 5 minutes, it's all set up. So the all-in-one technology, I think, is going to be something very important. When I gave my mom, who's now 83, the iPhone, it was just intuitive, and she just started using it. So what we need to do is get it to the point where people can just flip on AR, VR, and it's just intuitive. And that's going to be the technology that will be coming out in the next couple of years. And then from there, how do you build out the ecosystem? So if you go to the next slide, this highlights that like Qualcomm is working with 15 global operators to deliver XR viewers. So you have the smartphone OEM ecosystem, you have the viewer OEMs, and then you have the cellular operators. And like Nokia, we sell to all these cellular operators to help build out their network. So we're proud to be part of the operator community. And so with this collaboration of this ecosystem, is coming out. You look at the X2 ASIC. This is tremendous opportunity to make XR viewers a reality in the 2020 timeframe. So going to the next slide, Qualcomm shows this slide about where we're at today in the 1 to 4 years, where we have more wireless connectivity between the smartphone and the viewer, and then finally in 5 to 10 years where you just have the smart glass, a vision of smart glasses. So it's just a time where it just makes it very simple, very natural. If you give someone a smartphone who's never used it, it's very natural to just put it, to use it and to interface with it. And that's what AR VR needs to be, and that's where this vision that Qualcomm has and others of how do we roll this out to the billions and billions of people. So I talked a lot about 5G, but Nokia also sells Wi-Fi, and so I just want to highlight Wi-Fi 6 and then Wi-Fi 6E. Here in the United States, the FCC has actually allocated another 1.2 gigahertz of spectrum to roll out. So I'm excited about 5G, but also Wi-Fi 6 and 6E, and how the low latency that the Wi-Fi VR class latencies of less than 3 milliseconds for head-mounted display with Wi-Fi 6, and then the extra spectrum, so you can have 160 megahertz channels to get that gigabit speeds in Wi-Fi as well as in 5G. So this is the technology that's being rolled out today. And in the next couple of years, and from there, we're going to see this explosion of different, AR, VR technology. So if you go to the next slide, I really liked Alvin Grayman, and I asked him if I could use this slide because he talked about this vision of where we are going to be in 100 years. So if you look at
Sorry, Doug, is it the next slide?
Oh, yeah, the next slide. I'm
Is it?
sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, one more slide. Yeah. So
That's the one. Yeah.
Alvin talks about the Screen 100-Year Challenge. I was looking at these last 20 years and what's 20 years in the future. But he goes back to 1895, where you have your first screen, the movie screen, and then you get your televisions and so forth. But he's predicting that we're going to be at peak screen very soon, where all of a sudden now there's going to be fewer screens, not more screens. And so we're going to have individual screens. Just like before, you would have, 3 television channels and you get to hundreds of television channels. Now you stream whichever channel you want. You do individual streaming of information. So here on the screen, you're going to have fewer and fewer screens coming out. As eventually we go to glass, and then eventually you have brain-machine interface, so that where you don't even need to have any screen, because it's all embedded in, connectivity in the brain. So that's, probably 50 years out at least. We'll see. But that's the vision of where this technology is going. And so, in summary, just wanted to, go to the next slide, and then happy to take questions. If you look at, 2019, the cell phone industry, we were about $4 trillion industry. 3.5 billion smartphones, 4.8 billion cell phone users. Actually, we have 8 billion cell phones, but some people have multiple accounts, and babies don't have any cell phones. So you have these, this technology. So we're expecting that we're going to add a billion 5G users very quickly, in 3 to 4 years from now. We'll have that. And then, this 5G devices in the network there is optimized, and Wi-Fi 6 is optimized for VR, AR. And so this ecosystem that's already in place, this foundation for cellular, can help drive this AR, VR deployment. So, we're selling about 1.4 billion smart devices every year. And again, it will be leveraged for AR, VR. And then in 2007, the iPhone launched. I think we're going to see something like this. Our third generation of head-mounted displays, and all of a sudden there's just going to be explosion of AR, VR. So, AR, VR right now, in applications, they still need to be optimized for the masses. The good news is you people here in this room, you're on the cutting edge. You're kind of where the smartphone people were in 2007. So, you're going to be saying, hey, I remember when we had, some of the second G technology, head-mounted displays, and now it's just, you just put this on and it just happens. So in 2019, we had about 7.6 AR, VR headsets sold. It's estimated by 2023, 68 million. But I'm estimating, Phil Rosendale, and others are thinking we can get to 1 billion AR, VR users, $1 trillion of economic value by 2027. So that's a world I'm working towards, and I think it's a reality. And just looking forward to your questions, and happy to have a conversation with you on reaching this milestone. So thank you for your time.
All right, Doug. Thank you so much. Everybody, give it up for Doug, and what a encouraging overview of what's about to hit us. I mean, the amount of times you use the word explosion, I'm getting all excited. It's like fireworks. So yeah, we're gonna switch the mics on in just a minute, and I'll run you through how to ask a question to Doug. But just before we do that, Doug, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that. And I want to actually jump back through a couple of the slides in a minute, because there's a lot to dig into there. I mean, give me some applause if you appreciated some of the research and the data you saw there and the way it was laid out. Thank you very much.
You, everyone.
Appreciation for that. Yeah. I think for me, what I find, what I appreciate about what you've just shared with us, and maybe I'll speak for myself. I'm an enthusiast. I'm an evangelist in this field, but sometimes I do still wonder. I mean, there's more and more people coming into VR, but the acceleration rate, I wonder about that. But from what you're saying, we're just around the corner from this technology being as ubiquitous as mobile phones now. And I mean, I try to imagine what the world would look like when my mother, my sister, my colleagues, my students, the kids in the street all have these kind of VR devices. Give it 5 years, let's say 5 years, and you go into the shop, and half of the people in the shop have some kind of AR VR device. That world, I find that hard, struggle to imagine what that will be like. But the data you're showing seems quite clear to show that's definitely where we're heading. And the foundational
Absolutely.
technology for that is 5G. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that people are investing hundreds of billions of dollars into the
Wow.
world of 5G, which will enable these applications. And so that's
Yeah.
one thing when Qualcomm announced, this ecosystem,
Yeah.
and hey, how do we leverage all this work and this expertise of the cellular
Yeah.
industry so that we can accelerate the deployment of AR VR?
Right. So they're building the infrastructure that everything else will ride on. And the other thing I picked up on, so obviously there's other technologies kind of converging with these developments like AI and quantum computing. And when people get a couple of minutes into talking about AI, often the subject comes up of humans being replaced in some way. But it sounds like what you're saying, this technology here is actually going to be instrumental in creating a lot of jobs and another economy. Do you think that might balance out the effects of AI so that we won't have less jobs, we'll just have different jobs? Do you think that might be possible?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm a big believer in intelligence augmentation. So each one of
Yes.
us, have a level of intelligence on different areas. But
Right.
with AI and AR, VR, and the communication technologies, we can leverage all the knowledge of everyone to amplify our ability. So that's where you have this intelligence augmentation. And when we're all, as humans, as we amplify our intelligence, it's just like we're amplifying, like all of us, there's 1.2 billion cars right now, vehicles in the world.
Yeah.
Those vehicles are amplifying our ability to travel, long distances. So think of that as, what if you had to walk everywhere?
Yeah.
How limited that would be. And it's almost like saying, well, if you give someone the ability so they could travel 100 miles quickly, well then,
Yeah.
you're going to put horses out of business. No, what you're going to do is you're going to amplify the ability for people to travel all
Understood.
over the world. And we're going to do the
Right.
same
And that
thing with intelligent augmentation.
understood. Okay, understood. Well, I could hog you all day long, and I really would like to. I have 100 more questions, and maybe we'll jump on another call someday, Doug. But we have got some questions coming in from the audience, so
Yeah,
I'm
please.
going to take them as they come in. Here we go. First question is from Danny on. Let me switch your mic on, Danny on. Oh, yeah, Danny on. You should have. Do I need
Oh,
to?
there you
Yeah.
go.
Yes.
We here?
Yeah. What's your
Yeah,
question?
yeah. Hi.
Yeah. Let us know where
Excellent.
you are.
Hi. So, yeah, I'm a 22-year-old developer, and I was wondering, as time goes forward, what opportunities do you see as the most lucrative to invest as far as, trying to make money off of this platform?
Well, in the enterprise space, the technologies out there like healthcare would be a big area. Real estate would be another one. Education, what they're doing here is those. Now, in the consumer space, you have gaming, and that's going to be the big business here. There's going to be a lot of opportunities, in this development space. Like right now, from app developers for the cellular industry, there's about 10 million app developers. And so the question is how, what role can you fit? So first of all, I'd say look for your passion. Like, are you interested in healthcare? Are you interested in education? Engineering. Like Nokia. We're doing different using this specific applications within AR VR. So
Yeah.
not only become an expert in AR VR, but also an application within. Like I'm an expert in healthcare, or I'm an expert in retail AR VR,
Right.
or I'm an expert in gaming. Does
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
answer the
So
question?
Danny on, I hope you don't mind, but we were getting a bit of feedback from you, so I kind of muted you halfway through there. But I think I see what you mean in terms of getting involved for your passion. If I was thinking about investment, I probably I probably think about the foundational structure, right? The technology that underlies it. So investing in 5G right now, if this is going to be carrying that whole industry, that might be a good one to invest in. Doug, I'm going to ask you a favor, my friend, because your audio is has just started to kind of be affected a little bit. Can I ask you? I'll talk you through how to re-enter the space. So do you see the little menu bubble, like the blue menu bubble in the middle?
Yes.
To your down, yeah. If you click on that, that'll bring up your like an interface. If you click
Right.
on settings, click on settings. So bottom right is settings,
Right.
and then top left is general,
Yeah.
and then halfway
Re-enter.
down is re-enter space. Yeah, if you click that, you'll jump out and jump back in again. There you go. Just going to wait for him to come in. Hopefully his audio will improve by the time he does come in. We've got a couple more questions. I'm going to get the next question lined up. Thank you for that, Danny On. We're going to go to, let me see, Starlight next. Starlight, your microphone is on. And I think I just saw Doug come in. There you go, Doug. We got another question from Starlight. Starlight, give us some emojis. Let us know where you are, please. Where are you? Starlight, did you want to ask a question? Are you okay? Wave your hands or emojis. Which is you? Where are you? Okay. Well, all right. Well, what's your question, please, Starlight?
How do you foresee that the advertising market will change with virtual
advertising.
reality?
Advertising. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you again, looking at the history, and by the way,
Sorry, Doug. Have you got megaphone on again now? You have to. I should have said. Sorry, man. So bottom right, host tools, megaphone. Sorry about that.
Yeah, now I do.
I think that's better. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So advertising, if you look at where advertising was in the old world, before the cell phone came out, before mobile advertisement, before internet advertisement, think of those changes, right? And all of a sudden now with Google advertisement and Facebook advertising, that's changed the game. So again, what I want you to do, the takeaway from this presentation is, how did we do things before the cell phone, and how are we doing things now? And if we can leverage that with, saying, okay, these are the lessons learned, and what can we then use that lessons on how we transition from mobile to AR, VR. And so, I don't have anything specific, but that's what I would think about as you're trying to figure out advertisement in AR, VR.
That's interesting, because that change, I mean, as fundamental as it was pre-mobile to pre-smartphone to post-smartphone, was obviously a fundamental shift. But that's all within our living memory. The big changes of that scale before that was, what was it, pre-TV? And nobody remembers. Well, I don't remember pre-TV anyway. But to think that such a fundamental shift is within everybody's living memory, and we have a direct, a close comparison to draw on in terms of extrapolating impacts from that change to within AR, VR. And actually, as we were asking about advertising, if you look to the audience, if you look to your right on the wall, there's a piece of advertising in VR as we speak. So, it's easy. Digitalizing advertising in VR is quite easy in that sense. Okay,
yeah,
thank you. Good question.
One comment I would say, like AR, like Peter Diamandis, I'm part of the Abundance Digital Group, and he wrote a book, The Future is Faster Than You Think, and he goes into the future of advertising. One thing is with especially augmented reality, when you're walking around and you see something you like, all of a sudden you can identify what you're seeing, and then instantly get a connection to it. So you can it's a seamless connection to what you're seeing to purchase, right? And so maybe that would be one suggestion I would have, is the ability to leverage VR and AR for purchasing and
really interesting. That's really interesting. Just before I take the next question, I recently, for the college immersive lab I'm designing, we got some HoloLens, and I had it at home. My 11-year-old son Ziggy, I let him unbox it, and he was the first to put the HoloLens on. He should have seen his face. Anyway, I gave him a good day or two running around with the HoloLens around the house, and he just went quiet and was totally engrossed by this thing. And it's funny because I've had VR headsets in the house for 2 years straight, like every shape and size. And he goes for it and everything, but it's the way he took to the HoloLens was completely different. And I asked him about it. I said, we've had VR in the house, but you're going for the HoloLens. Why is that? He said, well, it's weird because with the HoloLens or with AR glasses, I'm changing my own world. And that really stuck with me. He's now not, in VR, you can change any world. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. That's great. But this was his room. He had a dinosaur on his bed. He had the globe spinning in the corner of his room. It was his world. And that difference really stuck with me. So when here we can advertise, but if with AR, you're wearing your glasses downtown somewhere and you're getting real-time information about your real surroundings, that's a different level. Okay, so let's bring up another question here. We got some more questions. Thank you, Starlight, for that. We got Thomas Brannan. Just a minute, Thomas. Your mic should be on any minute now. You got to accept. Thomas, let us know where you are. Where are you? There you go. Okay, front of the, yeah, correct. Okay,
Hello.
that's your question. Hi.
Yeah, a great presentation. When I think of 5G, particularly as it relates to augmented reality and having, glasses, 5G glasses, that's pretty much the end of the smartphone at some point. We know we'll probably have both for some transitional period, but do you have a sense of when really the smartphone will cease because the 5G augmented glasses will just have taken over the need for, a device in your pocket?
Yeah, actually, Tim Cook from Apple talks a little bit about that, and so I'd probably encourage you to read some of what he's thinking. But what I think is happening is more and more processing power is being developed because of 5G. So like Apple's coming out, the rumors are 5G and this next smartphone round. And Qualcomm, they just came out with a new the X2 chip for AR VR, and so what you're doing is you're seeing more and more powerful processing. If you look at Wi-Fi 6, that again also gives you more and more powerful processing. So it's just riding this curve. That we're actually doubling the capacity and the quality and the speeds every couple years, and the battery life keeps getting better and better. Per processing unit, right? Sometimes the battery life doesn't get that much better, but you can do so much more with the same battery life. So, I'm a big believer that, I think, the question I said was, when will this take off for the masses, is when the battery life lasts for a whole day. So, I think, if in fact, if you went to that first, the slide from Qualcomm showing, 1 to 4 years, you're going to have, a smartphone and the glasses or the head-mounted display. And then 5 years plus is when, all of a sudden these glasses can be embedded together. Now, the other thing is how much you do local and how much you do with, in cloud base. So you offload the processing so that it's not, all the extra processing power, you don't need it on the glass. You can do it in the cloud or in the mobile edge.
Right.
And so that's, I think that's going to be a transition over the next 5 years.
You think also, I was thinking about the question, and if the idea that AR glasses would replace a smartphone, it's kind of logical because it's a superseding technology. But at the same time, we still have TVs. So TVs are however many hundred old, and people are still watching TVs. I wonder whether it's not so much that the smartphone will get replaced, but that it will get replaced as the top technology. So we still have cinema, we still have TV, we still have radio, we still have all those preceding technologies, and their rank in importance maybe has changed. But I wonder whether the smartphone will ever get fully replaced in that sense. What do you think?
Well, it's more like an account. Like right now you have when you get a different smartphone, you don't say, oh, I got a brand new account and everything and redo everything, right?
Yeah.
You're just replacing from your Android to your next generation Android, or from your iPhone to your next generation. So I think that's what you're going to see, is this evolution. And are they going to 10 years from now, when you don't have a brick like where it's just your glasses. Do they still call it a smartphone just because that's legacy, right? Or is it
Yeah.
smart glass? Glasses.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
though all the functionality of your smartphone is embedded in those glasses.
Right. In some ways, smartphone, the last thing it is actually a phone. Yeah, it's like it's got a
Exactly.
phone in it, but and we still call it a phone, but really it's a computer. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. We got two more questions here. This is great. Lots of questions, and I've got my own questions still to come as well. So thank you, Thomas, for that. We got Louise A. Coming up. Your mic. Let us know where you are, Louise. Where are you? You got a question for us?
Here, once I get
Oh,
there.
Okay.
Anyway, the point is, the
Yeah.
question is the
Louis.
point you brought up earlier, which was your son was very interested in AR versus VR. Is
Yeah.
that talking to the adoption of AR much sooner than VR?
Oof, I couldn't extrapolate for my son, but I noticed it. And to be honest, because AR essentially would allow me to walk around town with some hopefully cool, stylish glasses, VR requires that you're kind of in a contained place. I think what speaks for AR is that it's contextualized wherever you are, and it doesn't limit your movement. So that for me is a big adoption pull, I would say. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Doug?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Great point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for that question. Was that the question? Yeah.
Yes, that was just talking
Okay,
about
cool.
the differences between AR and VR.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. Okay. And then we've got another one from Mossy or Will. Will, let us know where you are, Will. Some emojis or hands or something.
Hi there.
Where are you?
Hi. This is me here.
All right. Oh, yeah. Great. In the black avatar. Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's me. Hi,
Yeah.
thanks very much. Very interesting talk. I just had a couple of questions. One was actually just following from the question we just had, which it seems to me that virtual reality, how possible do you think it'll be that we can have, levels of integration of AR and VR? So I'd quite like to have a full VR space, but where I can
Mhm.
still have a chair where my chair is and see my drink where my drink is and be able to pick
Yeah.
up my drink but I'm instead of seeing anything in my room, what I'm seeing is my, a penthouse apartment on a skyscraper in Manhattan or something, and my friends are there with me. But there's a few real things that I can actually interact with. So that's my first question. How viable is that? And then secondly, I just wanted to ask about what you think about production at the moment and output at the moment of VR devices and also mixed devices, because I think it's largely probably to do with the lockdown that most people in the world have been under for the last few months. But it's really actually hard to get hold of an Oculus Quest at the moment. I managed to get mine, and I think the day I got mine, I got the only one in London, and I had to drive across the city to pick it up. And
did you have a
I've got
security
other
detail to get you home?
exactly, and I think that I've got other friends who are looking on Amazon, and they come on, and then within a couple of hours they're gone again. So I just
good
wanted
question.
your thought about
Maybe Doug, can you talk about production? Do you have any insight into that at the moment?
Well, I was just looking at the statistics. I haven't seen any recent data. I don't think, in fact, when in July, when people start reporting their earnings, it will be interesting to see what HTC and Facebook and others will report during this COVID crisis. But, the anecdotal information is that, people are wanting to try this. AR, VR is, you have time so the masses could try it out. And that's even with this current generation technology. Once you get the X2 generation, the next level, the battery life gets better. That will really help drive this technology. It would be my comments.
Okay. Okay. I remember there was a period when Oculus Quest wasn't shipping at all because of COVID, but I was surprised by how quickly they bounced back. So China was shipping again, and it's kind of a nice problem to have, I imagine, as a manufacturer. Maybe it's not a nice problem, I don't know, but trying to sell to a market where there's more demand. I'd rather that than trying to sell, like having lots of devices and no one to buy them. But then it must be incredibly frustrating for half the planet wanting to buy the devices and you can't get them to them. But maybe I can say one or two words to your second question, and that was about why the distinction between VR and AR, and could we fuse the two devices? I'm aware of a couple of initiatives where these two technologies are integrated. So even your Oculus Quest, hands, like, give some emojis who has an Oculus Quest here, who's joined in the Quest. Give me some smiles, claps there, quite a few people. So there's a setting in that now that you can choose your environment and your settings, which is a pass-through environment. So while you're, so you can actually, I had it on for a while, where you can see your computer, you can see your desk through the device, but when you choose your application, you go into that application. So that's sort of the start of kind of the integration between AR and VR. And then there are some other devices being designed as we speak that are specifically designed for that purpose. So that makes the switching between AR and VR even easier. I think HTC Alvin Wang-Grayland showed a video of Tony Scared Ghost, who's showing specifically that with the Vive devices as well. So that's coming, and I think that'll become standard because people like you will expect it. You know, makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Drudley, what a great name, Drudley. Okay, you should be with us.
Yes,
Let us know where you are, Drudley.
I'm right here. Sweden, if that's what you meant.
Okay, in the front with the orange jumper. Yeah, what's your question?
I had like a few questions.
Okay.
You have the future 2023 1 billion 5G devices. How many 4G devices do we have right now?
Right now, there's 3.5 billion smartphones.
But
Wow.
4D devices. 4G,
Mostly,
not 4D.
mostly of those are 4G. I could look. Yeah, there's a transition. I mean, there is, I would say maybe a billion non-4G. So there's total of 5 billion phones altogether, and individual phones are subscribers. I think
Right.
about 1 billion of them aren't LTE right now.
Also,
Okay.
what's edge AI devices?
Well, that's like your what is it? Alexa would be an edge
Oh,
device.
okay.
Google
That,
Home.
yeah, that statistic actually really surprised me. So
Yeah, I saw-
2017, we
yeah,
had
2017.
a billion like talking kind of interaction devices. That really surprised me. And then it
Yeah,
doesn't
it
because we have,
Me.
well, I suppose, do phones count, or is this separate edge
Yeah, the
AI devices?
phones
It would be
counts.
separate. Yeah, actually, if you go to my blog there
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, I actually reference the reports that generate those data.
Okay. That really surprised me. And I brought this slide up actually because there's a couple of other slides, and I know from a conversation we had a couple of weeks ago, Doug, or I think it was a combination of conversation we had, and then that book, The Future is Faster Than You Think. Anybody here read that by Peter Diamandis? I started reading it recently, and then I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. It was so much in my head. And so some of you will be aware of the kind of drive for humanity to explore space. Elon Musk is doing work in that direction, and obviously NASA's been doing it for a while, and this is accelerating with new technology. And I think, Doug, it was you who also mentioned that, there might be 1 billion intelligences in space within our
Right.
lifetime. But then the intelligences was actually, it's more likely that those intelligences would be artificial intelligences in forms of robot first. Kind of, we send them there with 3D printers. They print themselves into existence. They build a city and an ecology for us, and then we follow after them. But I really laughed out loud at the idea that 1 billion intelligences would be in space. That would be 1 billion robots building our landing pad when we're ready to follow.
Exactly. Well, like Elon Musk is putting up about 5 to 10,000 smart robots now. They're doing communication, but as
Right.
part of Starlink,
Yeah.
and so it's as I got into the theme of the billions and billions, that's where I got
Yeah.
the smart robots. I have a passion for space myself. And then the
Yeah.
question is, okay, if we get to 2102 for a billion smart robots, when will be there humans? And so I thought, well,
Yeah.
another 100 years and we can get there.
Cool.
By
All
the
right.
way, Jeff
Okay.
Bezos from Amazon has a
Okay.
trillion. He talked about a trillion humans in space.
A trillion humans. Right. They're outdoing each other with grand visions. I love it.
Exactly.
It's a good time to be a futurist right now, I think.
Exactly.
All right. Well, listen, Doug, we're almost up for time, and we usually at this point kind of um, just go outside and mingle and hang out a little bit. But I just wanted to have everybody one more time, please, big round of applause for Doug, and give some love and some smiles for Doug Hohulin from Nokia.
Thank you, everyone.
Insights. And I'm really encouraged by what you're saying. I hope you're right. I mean, 2027 is not that far away for our industry. I have no idea what that world will look like, but I want to be there with you. So, yeah, with having said that, we have more events coming up, I think, this week and next week. Then there's also the iLearn conference. Keep a lookout for those of you who don't know our Discord server. Please, please, please look to your right there. There's the link to our Twitter, website, Discord, YouTube, and so on. Find us on the website, join the Discord. We have a thriving, growing community of people from around the world who share links, resources, projects on our Discord there. Please, please join and get involved, because our mission really is maybe we could, right, I'm going to join the futurists here. You're talking about a billion. I want a billion students learning in VR. That's what I want in, let's say, 5 years. How about that?
Absolutely.
Or, well, can't get there before the devices. So let's say in 10 years, a billion classes in VR. That would be great. And with that, I'm going to kind of unmute you all, and I'm going to switch my megaphone off. Doug, if you want to switch your megaphone or amplify voice off as well, we'll all go outside, and then we can just have some kind of localized conversations. All right?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent.
What was the name of the book?
The future is faster than you think by Peter Diamandis.
Yeah, that's a great book. We should all read that.
I can't hear clearly. What's the name?
Let me amplify my voice. The future is faster than you think by Peter Diamandis.
Okay, the future is better. Great, thank you, man.
You're welcome.
Not sure how we could have a trillion people in space by what date?
Oh no, that's so.
That was that guy.
So Jeff Bezos, that was his quote. He
What
talked
was the
about
date?
Oh, he didn't give a date.
Oh.
Though I actually gave a date, which is 3002.
Oh, okay. That's actually not impossible, I guess.
Yeah, it will be interesting. So I think we're going outside for those who want to and have a further
Need to-
conversation.
What, outside?
Doug?
All right, cool.
Doug, I have a question
Oh,
for you.
okay.
Sure.
When you get out, I didn't really hear your answer for the very first question that was posed about, like, if someone wants to kind of monetize and be in this space, what your suggestions were, for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, that's where I was showing that slide by 2025. Where do you think the opportunity is in terms of the applications? So think about it. Where there's a network part of the business, there's the head-mounted display part, the devices, and then there's the applications. So that's where I thought that the slide I was showing, I'm pulling that up real quick. That talks to that.
I would like to
but-
see that slide if I could see it.
Yeah, if you can send me a friend request.
Okay, sure.
And let's see. There you go. Let me go back just a little bit. Angela. Okay.
Yeah, you might have a different image of.
So what I'll do is I'll figure out how to send you a link, or if you go to my presentation, they should have a posting of the links to my presentation. Is basically slide 13, which is it's called actually it's a white paper by IEEE, and it talks about all the different applications by sector: healthcare being the biggest. So if you're interested in healthcare, I think there's a tremendous opportunity there.
And where would I find your presentation? Is it on Discord or is it at your at a website?
Um, I'm not sure. I need to talk to Daniel and see how he's going to post the presentation.
Okay.
But on LinkedIn, I post a lot on LinkedIn. So if you go to my LinkedIn account, you can find me there, and I blog about this on LinkedIn.
Okay. Is that the link behind you? That LinkedIn that's on that screen there?
Yeah.
I don't know how to connect to you.
I think
Yeah,
he's got
I believe
stuck
so.
inside, or lots of people with him there. I think
Okay,
we go
perfect.
back and join
Thank
him,
you
no?
so much. And maybe
Waiting
if
for
you
everyone to
do
come
have
out,
the
we go
time,
back
if you
and
could
join him.
just shoot me some type of message just to make sure I get your to connect with you.
Okay. Yeah. If you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I will.
Okay, I sure will. Thank you, Doug. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank
Enjoyed
you.
your presentation too.
Well, I'm glad. Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I see you. You raising your hand. Is it Drewly?
Oh, looks like you're not looking at me. Anyway, yeah, it's Dudley.
Oh, Dudley.
What date do we have 1 billion self-driving cars?
What did I say on that date? I think. Well, I added UAVs, so that was 2039. Is what I estimated. Probably. So there's 1.2 billion cars right now. So the question is when will we have a billion UAVs or AVs? Probably AVs by themselves, probably around 2045-ish time frame.
Oh, it's AVs or autonomous vehicles?
Autonomous vehicles, right? And UAVs, are the drones.
No.
Hey, you know what, Doug?
Unmanned.
I got a question.
Sure.
Real quick. Yeah, sorry. I already asked one. I'm not trying to hog anything, but you mentioned obviously a lot of the things that are pushing us forward were military projects, right? So, for instance, the internet, smartphones, microprocessors. A lot of these were military projects. What role do you see the military playing in the development of VR going forward, or even now?
Well, I mean, they're playing a role, for education and information technology. In fact, according to this study by IEEE, that was part of this IEEE study, military will be about 1.4 billion of the, what is it, about $38 billion. So it's a smaller role in terms of dollar amount, but they are investing. I mean, that's where the 5G. They have a RFP out that includes VR, AR, because they see the need for education. They're doing training for soldiers. Is an area.
Okay.
And actually, the new jet fighter, the fifth generation. What is it? X-35, I think it is, or whatever. Anyway, F-35.
Yeah.
Their AR. They have a augmented reality visor, and I think they say it's $200,000.
No, my buddy works on them. Yeah, but with do you see anything other than that though? I mean, because that's an obvious application, right? Jet fighter, heads-up displays, and possibly ground infantry. But in your research, did you come across any other uses that they have or are currently using?
Well, the military is trying to get smarter and smarter soldiers. So I think
Sure.
what they're going to see is for every role in the military, they want to educate through AR, VR. Either augmented reality or virtual reality where it makes sense.
Cool.
Mixed reality?
Thanks.
Simulation and training.
What's that?
Simulation and training.
Exactly. And so, even like healthcare, they're saying healthcare is a $5.1 billion area, but a lot of that is around education. You're using, just like Nokia, we're using, our, AR, VR to help build out our cell sites. So is it training how to use, the sites, deploy the sites quicker? When does training end and when does execution begin? But in fact, there's a new there's this one application where you get an expert to do the work, and they follow, and the AR VR AI follows that expert, and then when the novice comes in and puts the AR VR goggles on, they actually follow what the expert did. So again, it's like
Interesting.
people,
Okay.
yeah. So there's kind of this mentorship, but
Huh.
you learn from the best, and then everyone gets to view it.
Huh. Nice. Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I love presentation, by the way. It's cool.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah.
Do you have an idea on when the so-called singularity will occur?
Um, yeah, I don't know. Actually, it was interesting. Going back to my 1802 is when we got a billion humans. Like as humans, we think of time in terms of years, right? In fact, that's what I was showing.
Yes, in seconds
But
and hours.
if you think about it, for the last 100 years, things have exponential growth, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
where if
I
you
know
read
that.
Peter Diamandis'
Brain
book.
concierge. Nice
So
name. All right.
yeah, we're kind of in the singularity right now. We're just seeing this exponential growth. Like if you look 30 years ago, we couldn't have this communication like we have today. And I do think this AR VR world, where we can define our own universe, our own worlds, is going to be very interesting. And so we'll see what the processing power is. I'm probably, if you ever read anything from Kevin Kelly, I like what he has to say about the singularity. But it's just a continuum of more and more processing power, faster speeds. But that's where I go back to this intelligence augmentation. How do you use the technology to augment the intelligence you have? And the
So,
things that you find most
neuro,
interesting and enjoyable.
what's it called? Neuro.
What's that?
What's the thing that Elon Musk is doing?
Neuralink.
Neuralink. Thank you.
Neuralink.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
example of what you were talking about, right?
Well, that's where
Enhancing
Alvin
our current
Graylin.
intelligence.
Well, you just look at the smartphone. How we can, do your computer. Anything that you can
Yes.
do to amplify your own intelligence. And more of that. Like now there's, like, um, for AR, VR, this entertainment, where you have live events and video entertainment. I think you're going to see more and more of that in AR, VR, where you get a more realistic experience being on stage, in being in your own house. Especially as we're going through
Yeah,
this pandemic.
that's just a convenience,
The
though.
ability to not have to go out, but you can stay inside. I think it's going to be important.
Yeah, that doesn't have
Anyone else?
anything to do with our, future intelligence.
Well, they're working on some of this, visualize, going back to healthcare using AR, VR, actually more virtual reality, to virtualize some of the protein folding and viruses. I think
Yeah,
the education part of healthcare is going to be very interested in virtual reality. I'm excited about that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's I think because what Doug was saying there just then about 5G,
Anyone else?
that's what 5G is going to enable. At the moment, one of the technologies or
Okay.
devices
Well, it's a pleasure meeting all of you,
really
and thank you. And
I totally
hope to
bad
see
you
you in
get a lot of
Alt Space
questions if you
again.
want to.
only the speed of 5G.
Thank you very
What's
much.
that?
That was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Just saying
This
thank you.
was really
Very
thank
interesting.
you
Thank
for
you
your
very much.
time.
Okay.
And
See
Take
you
care.
soon.
Bye.
Yo, if anyone wants to hang out with me, I'm cool to do that.
I didn't even mean.
What happens when they wipe out
What I'm talking about.
files on the
We got a room full of tech savvy people up in here. That's quite the opportunity.